Next up, if you're a silver bug, and there's a few of those in the room, this is one of the few pure play silver companies. And I like to look at what I call the rubber band effect when the bull market hits, which is companies that have a lot of reflexivity. They move up as soon as commodity prices, and they have a lot of volume and a lot of people following the stock, and that's Defiance Silver. So Darrell Rader is here. He's one of the founders and a leading director, and he's been kind to come down, come down here and give us a presentation on Defiance.
Yeah, let's get to the beginning here. It was nice of Colin to start the presentation for me, but I'll sort of take over from here. But my name is Darrell Rader, and I'm the founder and the lead director of Defiance Silver Corp. And before I begin this morning, I'm just going to touch on our disclaimer. And basically, as many of you know, exploration is a very high-risk, high-reward business. So please do your due diligence when you're looking to invest in this space. So this morning I entitled my presentation Silver, the First Mover Advantage. And the reason I entitled that is it's basically an investment thesis for Defiance Silver. And as many of you know that coming into a bull market, typically silver dramatically outperforms gold on a percentage basis. Silver equities outperforms gold equities at the beginning of a bull market. And with Defiance, for instance, in 2016, when silver went up to about $20 an ounce, in the 6-month period that was occurring, Defiance went up by just over 1,100%. We were one of the top 5 performing silver equities in the space. And so for me, that's something to be involved in. I want to be involved in silver companies that have the leverage, that are the first movers. I don't want to be one of these sort of low leverage plays that rises with the tide. And Defiance has proven that it's not. It's one of the first groups in the silver space on the exploration side that moves when silver starts to move. So why invest? I have just a bit of a breakdown here. We have a robust resource base with a lot of exploration potential. We have a team of proven mine finders, and I'll just sort of go through this and touch on a few of the key points here as we progress. On the mine finder side, we have a team that involves people like Peter Hawley from Americas Silver, Randy Smallwood, the CEO of Wheaton Precious Metals. This is the only board he's on outside of Wheaton. I myself, Darrell Rader, are up there. I'm the CEO of a company called Minorum Gold down in Mexico. And basically Minorum Gold, for those of you that know the company or don't know the company, was actually the second top performing silver equity last year behind Silvercrest. So suffice it to say, we are a group of silver bugs here. We've been in the business a long time. We love silver, and we want to be one of the leading silver plays when we see the market turn here on the horizon. Share structure, the things to note here is we have a pretty heavy institutional ownership in the company, and MAG Silver holds a significant interest in the company. I'm not going to go through all these little points. You can read that at your leisure, but gives you a bit of an idea where we are in Mexico. Our flagship project is the Acacio silver project in Zacatecas that has a starter resource of 17 million ounces, and then we have a 3.6 million ounce gold equivalent deposit in Michoacan. So Acacio, why silver, why Acacio? So Acacio is a project that is hosted in the billion-ounce Zacatecas silver camp. We're in the southern portion of the camp. We're just about 20 kilometers north of the town of Zacatecas. In this area, there were 4 main producing veins. The most notable vein was the Veta Grande vein, of which we control the majority of. There was over 150 million ounces mined there. There's a number of other veins. You can see there's a lot of players. This is an old historic area. You have all the big players like Pan American, Capstone. Capstone to the south of us is mining the Malanoche vein, which is actually a historic silver vein that they drilled below and found the copper feeder system for, and that basically was the vein that built Capstone into a mid-tier producer. They're producing, as you can see there, 34 million pounds of copper a year, and they're doing it at a price of about 77 cents all in per pound. So it's a very profitable mine, but they are the only vein in this entire district that has been drilled at depth for the copper feeder system. So that's something we're looking at, is the potential at depth here. The other thing to note here is through a transaction with MAG Silver last year, we acquired a 135,000 hectare regional database. It cost over $10 million for MAG to assemble, and it stretches right in the heart where you can see our red blocks are Defiance. It stretches from there right up to the Fresnillo district where MAG Silver has its Juanicipio deposit. That to me is a bit of a driver moving forward. A driver is as in when silver does turn, we have a lot of targets that we can stake, flip out to other juniors when the time comes, because this database, there's so much in there. And as you can see here, 90 holes and IP, satellite imagery, and all those kinds of things. So this is just a bit of a neat sort of graphic to show you what makes this district different. And as many of you know that invest in the silver space, Mexico is known for high-grade, narrow veins, and narrow being 25, 50 centimeters up to a meter widths, and they're, excuse me, they're spectacular grades, but they're narrow. This system here is a very wide, sort of an abnormal system. The average historical widths mined were about 12 meters. This gives you an idea what 12 meters looks like. And most notably, they were getting grades of up to 900 grams on average over these kind of widths. And we have underground records that show stopes that were 28 meters wide. So it is a big, robust system. So on the project, we have 3 primary exploration targets. We have the resource expansion drilling that I'll get into a little bit. We have, most notably, the thing I'm most excited about is 3.9 kilometers of vein that has never been drilled, never seen modern exploration. And then we have a portion of the vein that measures about 500 meters that we've been doing some targeting work on and generate some significant targets. So this long section here is basically a long section you'll see throughout the presentation. The key thing to note is, as you see all these workings, these lines, these shafts, these are basically where the 150 million ounces of silver was mined. The blue area, as you can see in the corner, is a contained resource. That's where our current resource is. That's actually a picture of the mine back, I believe, in the 1890s. There's a bit of the ruins there, but not too much left. So I'll just touch on it briefly. As I said, the first target we have is resource expansion. And as many of you know, the market-leading silver equity in the space has been Silvercrest and its Chispas deposit in northern Mexico. And what they did is they went into a historical producer. From what I've read up on it, it was about a 30 to 40 million ounce historical producer, and they just focused on drilling residual mineralization, leftover material at depth, and they drilled up about 100 million ounce resource with great economics. This is an area that we started drilling outside of the known boundaries of the historical workings. We've put out a starter resource of 17 million ounces at about 200 grams per ton silver, no base metals included in that. But since then, we've done 5,000 meters of further drilling. That has added internally to our resource, internal resource, but we're not going to publish one for some time here. The idea is we want to get this resource up to at least sort of the 50 million ounce mark before we publish a new revised one. But the key thing here is we drilled, we hit mineralization up to 150 meters below the old workings. We hit mineralization along strike that was outside the resource. You can see some of the numbers that we're drilling here, like hole 8 was drilled in 2017. We had 7 meters true width of 600 grams of silver, plus some base metals and gold. There were even some wider intercepts, like 27 meters of 140. You're not going to mine the whole 27, but there's big portions of that have grades that today in surrounding mines are economic. So it shows you the potential there, but that's an area that we know there's mineralization, we know there's more, but we're not going to focus on at this point. In this point, what really excites us is the exploration side. What we're looking for in this part of the cycle is not adding ounces, but finding sort of company-changing discoveries. And so as I alluded to, 3.9 kilometers of this historic vein have never seen any exploration whatsoever. And the reason for that is quite simple. Basically, the vein, where it is exposed on surface and was mined on surface and is still being mined today, the northern portion that we don't control is in production as we speak. That part of the ore body outcropped on surface. So when the Spaniards came by, they saw multi-kilos over multi-meters on surface, and they mined it. But as the vein continues to the southeast, it has a gentle dip of about, we've sort of calculated about a minus 10 degree angle as it dips down. And so what you see is the bonanza grade doesn't appear on surface. Nobody explored there, nobody produced there. And these little circles here are basically the silver shoots. And the solid round circles are the known silver shoots, and the dotted ones are sort of how we extrapolate the trend moving along. But for those of you that understand silver veins in Mexico, silver veins pretty well anywhere, these things basically pinch and swell. And what you need is the vein to open up sort of properly that allows the fluids to come up, form a silver shoot. And this happened with some regularity on the part of the vein that was exposed on surface, but we know that that trend continues. And one of the other items that gives us some certainty that the vein continues here for almost 4 kilometers is right about below the Defiance logo there, and the last circle is the end of our property. And that's where the ridge that sort of hosts the vein goes into a valley and goes into agricultural land, as you can see. From that point out, another 4 kilometers along strike, Mag Silver drilled what they called the Sun Acacio Extension Project in 2009, and they hit 850 grams over a meter at a depth of 400 meters. And that was directly on strike of the vein, so we know that the vein continues there. 400 meters is pretty darn deep, but at that point, you're almost 10 kilometers away from our deposit is. But it shows you the strength of these systems and the fact that that much further in the bottom of a valley, it's still running strong grades. It shows you want to go in here and drill this thing off systematically and see if you can't find another chute. And the most important thing with these chutes, if we can find one, will be similar to what the historic chutes were, i.e. big, high grade. Everything that's left right now is leftover mineralization, lower grade, getting deeper in the system, higher base metals. So if we can hit another chute, there's multi-100 million ounce potential here, but we need to do a systematic drill program. There's going to be a lot of high risk drilling on this structure, but if you can hit, you're off to the races. It's game changing for the company. Just moving on lastly to this part of the project, this is a 500 meter gap, that basically sits behind where we have our area of the deposit and where this 3.9 kilometer unexplored part of the vein commences. This is an area where we decided last year to stop drilling and figure out how to better target these systems. We know that this pattern of silver shoots continues, but in this market, it's pretty tough to just go put a rig there and drill blindly hole after hole after hole. So we said, okay, let's start doing some kind of surveys. Let's see what IP would deliver. So we did an IP. We ran a few lines there. It generated a big target. We stopped and said, okay, well, let's do something else to see if this is a legitimate target. And we ended up doing something called an AERI, an Atomic Energy Resonance Imaging Survey. This is a relatively new technology that Americas Silver has used to some success to locate parts of its deposit at its mine in Sinaloa that is overburden covered. So we did that survey there, and it generated a coincident anomaly. And this coincident anomaly, this AERI, as part of its sales pitch, is it can differentiate between base metals and precious metals. And it generated a massive target at depth. Massive being, as you can see there, 400 meters wide, 300 meters in length, and at a kilometer, which is the base level of its detection capabilities, it was still expanding. So it was a massive anomaly, and as I said in the earlier part of the presentation, we know there's copper at depth here, but none of the veins except Malanoche, our neighbor, have been drilled at depth. And so we looked at this and said, okay, this is pretty material for us. We need to start looking at permitting this, which we have. And then subsequent to that, in September, Capstone of last year, Capstone put out an exploration update. And they had been doing geophysics underground, and they came up with a massive anomaly, an IP anomaly, that is basically just across the valley from where our anomaly is, and their anomaly dips towards us, while our AERI and IP anomaly dips towards them. So, it's still a geophysics target at the end of the day, and you don't know, but it's the kind of thing that if you can drill and hit a copper body at that point, it's once again, I call it sort of a lottery ticket target. It completely changes the complexion of the company. If you can find copper under the Veta Grande compared to, say, the Malanoche, which Capstone built a mid-tier out of, and the Malanoche did 30, 40 million ounces of historic production. It's a much smaller vein, and the Veta Grande did over 150 million ounces. If you can find a copper feeder system under there, you're off to the races. And this is an area where, as I said, Capstone is producing copper for 75 cents, 77 cents a pound all in. So this is an area that we're actually going to be drilling probably within the next 3 weeks. You'll see a news release coming out on that. We recently raised some money, and we're going to start plowing some holes in there. And these are, as I said, sort of lottery ticket, game-changing holes. think I still have a few minutes here, thanks to the previous presenter who gave me some extra time. But I'm just going to touch on Tepal. This is a project that we acquired last year as well. This, to be honest, was just a distressed opportunity we took advantage of. This was a project that used to be the flagship project of Geologics down in Mexico, which some of you may know was a $200 million market cap company in 2010. They spent a lot of money. They put out a resource. They put out a PEA. These PEA after-tax numbers, of course, are the ones you should focus on in orange. These are numbers that are done at a $1,250 gold level. So they're pretty realistic, in my opinion. It's not the highest grade deposit, but the fact it shows positive economics today, there's a lot of value there, and even more so when gold starts moving, it becomes a real sort of optionality push behind the company. But this is a project that we purchased for about $1 in paper per each ounce in the ground. We spent about $4 million issuing Defiance shares to get 100% of this asset. And this is something that has some exploration potential at depth, but we're not going to be exploring it for the time being. It's something that is on the back burner, but sort of acts like a foundational asset for the company while we focus on the bigger, higher impact targets at the Acacio project in Zacatecas. Catalysts, pretty simple here. Drill. And, we're going to put money into the drill rig. We're going to drill right off the bat this copper anomaly. If we hit there, it's a game changer. We'd like to do the geophysical surveys based on our success at this one target along the rest of the vein, just to help targeting drilling for these new silver shoots. At some point, we'll put out a resource estimate. I think that's a bit of a longer-term catalyst. And on Tepal, we'll probably follow up with doing at least some work on the generation of, I guess, higher grade feeder systems that have some potential to deposit but have never been explored for. There's a number of appendices in your presentation that talk a bit more about the gold project. The one thing I'd say about Tepal as far as these high grade feeder systems is, you'll see it in the appendix, is when they were drilling the Tepal deposit, besides this widely disseminated bulk tonnage situation, in some of their deepest holes, they started hitting epithermal veins. And these epithermal veins were, there were a number of holes that were 1 meter to 2 meters wide, running almost an ounce of gold. And they were sort of categorized as an anomaly, and they weren't followed up on because they weren't part of the entire deposit model. It was just, quite often when you're exploring for one thing, you find some other things in the process. And they found that there, they left it, and that's an area where we'd like to do more work, but once again, in this market, you have to be laser focused, and we're focused on putting our money into San Acacio, and when a good market hits, bang, we'll start allocating some money towards the gold project as well. So I won't go into the appendices, they're in your presentation. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Think you understand the junior mining sector, and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
How violent that term could be, it actually could be quite violent. It could be a rip your face off uranium rally.
And the world is always going to need raw materials. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, Troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen?